You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Well, hello, smart women. If any of you had been listening to the audiobook of Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions and How Critical Thinking Can Protect Them, which we have played over about the last 10 weeks, you might like to tune in to the next 15 weeks and listen to the audio recording of my second book, which is Why Smart Women Buy the Lies and How Critical Thinking Reveals the Truth. So this is a continuation of the hapless character Kat, how she identifies the flaws in her thinking and finally makes better decisions. If you find yourself tuning in and you are perhaps in episode 3 or episode 4, by all means, go back to episode 1 and follow the narrative because it has a very strong narrative arc. So, relax, kick back, get yourself a cup of tea or a glass of wine and listen to the audio version of Why Smart Women Buy the Lies and How Critical Thinking Reveals the Truth. See you soon. Bye. Chapter 4. Lydia is the worst boss. On the days you work from home, you wake up later and later. Less travel time has encouraged more late nights watching Netflix and eating delicious snacks from the fridge. You regularly stumble out of bed at 8:25 a.m. to join an 8:30 a.m. Zoom call. You hate your boss. You feel bad about this, but the truth is incontrovertible. You'd assumed working remotely would mean less contact with Lydia, but Zoom is like cocaine to her. It's given her unfettered access to you and your entire team at any tick of the clock. This morning she has scheduled an 8 a.m. Zoom meeting with you and Dasha from HR to talk about your ever-diminishing team. Your team is ever-diminishing because Lydia is so difficult. In your opinion, actually not just your opinion, Zach left last week. On his last day, you'd asked him what work he had lined up.
I don't have anything lined up,
He'd said.
but I'd rather be an actor than work here.
An actor?
You'd found this to be an unusual example of a bad career. You'd always fancied the idea of treading the boards. You'd said this to him.
Treading the what?
He'd said. You'd realised Zach was only 24.
Never mind. So, why not acting?
My parents are both actors. They've survived the last 30 years doing chicken commercials, and they're vegan. It's ugly.
Right. Now on the Zoom call, Lydia asks if you know why Zach left.
I think he's gone to take up an acting career.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Says Dasha from HR.
Both his parents are actors. I went to school with his mum. She was in the last KFC ad. She was very convincing.
I did a few commercials myself,
Says Lydia.
but they were more modelling. If I were going to be an actress, I would have wanted character roles.
I think it's actor.
Says Dasha.
I'm sorry?
It's the non-gendered actor, not actress.
Lydia thins her lips.
Dasha, what is HR going to do about staff turnover? Clearly there's a problem with hiring. We've lost 6 people in the last 2 months.
You see Dasha inhale and look down.
We've been collating the exit interviews and there seems to be a common theme.
Lydia looks directly at Dasha down the barrel of the camera.
There seems to be a theme of team members feeling they're being micromanaged.
By?
Says Lydia. Says Dasha.
By you, Lydia.
There is a long, cavernous silence.
What do you think about that, Kat?
Says Lydia. You tuck your hair behind your ear and do a rapid-fire calculation involving your moral courage, your desire to stay on the right side of HR, the degree to which your answer will affect Lydia's micromanagement, the amount of misery Lydia can create for you, and the inconvenience of finding a new job.
I think
You say,
in the current climate, as the business prepares to upgrade, the need for disruptive innovation will drive and leverage adjacent synergies, necessary as they are, to ensure our deliverables are maintained. If modernisation means looking at our value adds through fresh eyes, so be it. Not everybody gets that, though, right?
Lydia nods at you.
I think Kat's right, Dasha.
She says,
It's a very disrupted space. Not everyone gets that. Maybe this could be made clearer in the onboarding process.
Adasha looks at you. There is a slight twitch at the corner of her mouth.
Of course. Thanks, Kat.
Anyway, Kat, we're short on bodies, so it's all shoulders to the wheel until HR gets its house in order.
Sure.
You say, wondering how long you can avoid running into Dasha in the communal kitchen. We'll meet again. When the pandemic hitched a ride into Australia, you packed up your desk, set up your computer on the dining table, and switched on Zoom, not realising you wouldn't be turning it off for 2 years. In the beginning, there was a sense of wartime camaraderie, while the chaps at the Home Office strategised in drawing rooms on how to fight the blasted thing, cigars clamped between their teeth. You and your team would bunker down in the shelters and fight the good fight. The solidarity has long faded. Zoom has become a permanent feature of your work existence. You find yourself trapped in the early chapters of a dreary post-apocalyptic novella that should never have been published in the first place, and you suspect the end will be awful. Lydia, however, was made for a global pandemic and its aftermath. A warlike footing meant the line between the end of the workday and the beginning of home time was non-existent. Lydia, as the Executive General Manager for Corporate Affairs and Communications, works 24/7. In the 100 million Zoom calls you've had with her, you've seen no signs of life in her home, except for an incredibly restrained, bearded collie called Ghost, who has an unnerving habit of looking directly at the camera with his one blue eye and one brown. Lydia considers it permissible to contact you by any device available. If you don't answer her email, she texts you. If carrier pigeons were available, there would be one bearing Lydia's corrections in its little canister, tapping at your lounge room window. Constant phone pings and rings now punctuate your dinners with Michael.
Hope I'm not interrupting, Kat.
She says. She is interrupting. Michael is standing at the fridge waving a tub of caramel ripple ice cream at you. You give him the thumbs up.
All good.
You say,
I texted Adele, but she's feeding dinner to her snake.
says Lydia. Of course Adele is feeding her snake. Adele has no trouble saying no to Lydia.
Just because Lydia works relentlessly doesn't mean we have to jump every time she calls.
Adele once told you.
God, Kat, you're the worst pushover.
It's easy for Adele to say she has one of those straight-up personalities. She's the sort to tell an Uber driver to go the shorter way or to send back a tepid coffee. You do not send coffee back, half concerned you'll look painful and demanding, half concerned the barista will spit in it. You want to apply for another job, but last time you asked Lydia for her support, she was less than helpful. The conversation had taken place over a Zoom call. Lydia was in her home office, Ghost at her elbow. You'd been on the call for 10 minutes before noticing you only had makeup on one eye. Porridge was still wet from lying in the pond at the park, and had chosen to jump up on your lap in the middle of the call. He had barked repeatedly and knocked your tea off the table. Ghost had sat perfectly still, evaluating Porridge's Zoom performance.
So how are you going adjusting to life post-COVID?
Lydia had said, ticking off the mental health question.
I'm fine. Though it's not really post-COVID, is it? It's going to be around for years.
Well, I don't know, Kat. I'm sick of thinking about it. We have to learn to live with it.
Living with it. Saying that made it sound easy. You weren't finding it easy. You'd been having terrible headaches. That would be stress-related, the doctor had said. If you're working from home, take breaks between calls. Once in a while, go and look out the window for a couple of minutes. Last time you looked out the window, a couple from the units across the road were having a massive row on the street. She threw a shoe at him. She was wearing 2 shoes, so she must have had an extra one secreted about her person, which you'd found intriguingly preemptive.
Okay. So you were coping well. Good.
Lydia had said.
So why do you want to apply for this new position?
Your interest in moving to the transformation team is due to working for Lydia being like working as a surgical nurse to a tetchy surgeon. You proffer Lydia the appropriate instrument only to have her knock it from your hand, roll her eyes at you from behind her mask and select her own. Last week she gave you the task of simplifying the company value statements. You had shortened one of the sentences from, "We learn from our experience by evaluating the data, proposing hypotheses and testing through action," to, "Evaluation of actionable data drives learning." You'd wondered if capitalising the main words was overkill. Lydia didn't like it. Her only comment?
Simpler.
What kind of feedback is that? What kind of simpler? And then she was asking why you want to change positions. It was pretty simple.
I'm passionate about change.
You'd said.
My concern is that you might not meet the selection criteria. I think you should consolidate your skill base in your current position before you go off to transformation. I'd like to see you working on not second-guessing yourself so much. Let's take transformation off the table until you've got this position under your belt.
Off the table? Under your belt? You wanted to scream at her. Your use of mixed metaphors is appalling. That was 2 months ago. Things have not improved. The work week is now 7 days. Weekends are non-existent. She'd called you last week from a boat. You were in the cinema. She'd called you right at the climax. You had taken the call. In the background, you could hear the clinking of yacht rigging. Someone had asked, "Another prawn, Lydia?" Now it's Saturday night, 8:30 p.m, and you are in another unscheduled Zoom call with her. You're drinking wine from a teacup.
You're still missing the point.
You sigh inwardly.
You said you wanted it in plain language.
The door behind Lydia swings open and Ghost pads into the room.
I'm going to bring Norbert in just to get his input.
You don't want Norbert's input. Norbert has been at the firm for about 4,000 years. Nothing is ever conservative enough for Norbert.
Great idea.
You say.
Okay, I'll get Mabel to book a conference call with the 3 of us for 7:30 a.m. Monday. Norbert likes an early meeting.
Of course Norbert does. He probably needs an afternoon nap.
Mum?
A small head comes round the door. Lydia turns around.
Mummy's on a call. Remember I told you if the door's closed, it means don't come in.
The child, Lydia's child, reaches up and twists the doorknob.
There was a noise.
It's the wind, Nathan.
I don't think so.
Says the child.
If you have to go, that's fine.
You say hopefully.
We can reconvene on Monday.
Nathan eyes his mother hopefully.
Where's Dad?
He asks. She looks at you directly.
Well, that's another question.
Ghost shifts slightly and looks up at his mistress.
Let's talk at 7:30 Monday. Expect an invite from Mabel.
Poor Mabel. She was probably sitting down to the crown.
I could just text Norbert.
It's okay. Mabel doesn't mind.
Mum?
Lydia never exits Zoom calls. She just leaves the room. You watch her stand and move towards the child. There's the sound of a door banging somewhere in her house.
It's all right, Nathan.
Lydia says, taking his hand.
It's just the wind.
Maybe she smiles at him, maybe she doesn't. The door closes behind them. You exit the call and drain the last of the wine from the teacup. Your mental picture of a solitary Lydia dissolves. A child is now in the frame and a father. An absent father, absent this evening or more permanently. There could even be another child secreted in the house who will materialise at the door in another Zoom call asking for juice. Either way, Lydia has a family, and that surprisingly is one up on you. The big lie of empowerment. An empowered workforce dripping with discretionary energy. That's the goal, isn't it? We want employees who understand their job description and are given the autonomy to enact it. However, far from being empowered, many employees struggle to wrest authority from their managers. Empowerment has become little more than a husk of a notion. The dictionary definition of empowerment is the authority or power given to someone to do something. It sounds obvious, but to give someone something, you must let it go. If you are giving someone a gift, the moment you hand it to them, you must release your grip. This simple action of letting go or not letting go is at the centre of so much drama, churn, and loss of productivity. It's the focus of 1,000 backroom conversations. Why can't managers let go? It's not as if empowerment isn't front and centre of their corporate values. They walk through foyers every day past mission statements proclaiming customer-centric cultures fuelled by empowered workforces. They can't let go because the structures under which they operate won't allow them to. Lydia may well have a highly controlling, perfectionistic character, but behind every perfectionist is a person afraid they're not going to do well enough. The thought of being perceived to be underachieving is like death to a perfectionist. So who manages Lydia? How many performance reviews is she receiving a year? Are they high-quality conversations? Because if the person managing Lydia has low skills when it comes to giving constructive feedback, Lydia is going to leave her performance reviews feeling diminished and criticised without improved understanding of the impact of her behaviour, or worse, under the impression that everything is going fine. Lydia herself is unaware that she is driven unconsciously by her issues around control and perfectionism. She has post-rationalised her reaction to Kat's request. We all post-rationalise constantly. We make an emotional decision in the unconscious part of our brain, the limbic system, then post-rationalise it in the conscious part of our brains, the prefrontal cortex. This is a quick unconscious process, and being smart doesn't ameliorate the danger we're in from going with our gut response. In fact, having a high IQ often simply means our post-rationalisation sounds more convincing to ourselves and others. Lydia genuinely believes her own justification for not supporting Kat. She thinks Kat is underconfident and won't back her own judgment, so moving to another area is premature. Kat has a problem with power. Kat struggles to be clear and succinct in communicating her wants and needs. She is aware that she is intimidated by Lydia and feels unable to stand up to her, but how valid is this perception? We humans are highly responsive to the unspoken power dynamics that are played out between us every day. We may not be able to exactly explain why, but some people intimidate us while some people present no threat. In some relationships, the power imbalance is always present. One person is always dictating the outcomes. Other relationships are more fluid. The power balance moves back and forth. We're not consciously aware that we're responding to an unspoken power dynamic because it happens in the unconscious part of our brain. But before we know it, our conscious brain has justified the reaction we've had to the power imbalance. This is what has happened to Kat. She is aware that she can't hold her ground, but she has justified her reaction. It feels right. In her mind, she's just not the sort of person to push back. But feeling right is not the end of the story. Kat needs to apply some critical thinking to her reaction to Lydia. She never gets beyond the fact that she can't hold her ground. She never questions why or what she can do about it. If she could eyeball the power imbalance with clarity, she might feel able to take back some of her own power for herself. Authenticity, really? If you find yourself in one of those situations where you're struggling to stand up for your wants and needs, look at someone else who can hold their ground and ask yourself how they do it. Kat observed Adele saying no to Lydia and put it down to Adele having a tougher personality. This is, of course, true to some degree, but the idea that we can't learn to incorporate new behaviours into our own personality is untrue. We often hide behind the idea of authenticity. We are told to be ourselves, but who are we? Are we the same at the age of 20, 30, 40, 50? No, we're not. We grow and develop. We automatically adapt and adjust to our circumstances and environment. We can be deliberate in what we choose to incorporate into our personality. The thought of saying no to Lydia makes Kat extremely uncomfortable. But in this situation, the feeling of discomfort should not be the arbiter of whether or not she holds her ground. This goes to the point of being able to discern which intuitive reactions should be listened to and which need to be questioned. Kat's feeling of discomfort is also fed by confirmation bias. She has never been good holding her ground, so why would that change? The instances in which Kat has held her ground are automatically discounted in her mind. For Kat, the thought of ignoring Lydia's calls or telling her it's the weekend and she's happy to talk on Monday feels dangerous, but it's a feeling, not the truth. The only way through these situations is through them. Kat needs to sit in the discomfort, say no to Lydia, and then notice that the world doesn't fall apart. Lydia is used to having Kat on tap. She may buck at the change in power dynamics, but once she gets the idea that Kat has boundaries, she may just well adjust. Challenging the power dynamics, either in a one-off situation or in an established relationship, is not easy, but it's not impossible. Lie detection. Hand me the reins, please. If you're being told that you are empowered to do something without being handed the authority to do it, lay down on the floor and have a tantrum. No, don't. But you can say, to be accountable for this, I expect to have the authority to make these decisions. For example, expenditure, hiring locations, access to data, being kept in the loop. Be reasonable and practical. Keep it simple without losing accuracy. Most delegation fails when there is ineffectual assigning of power. And then ask, please tell me, do I have authority over these things? Keep asking until it's clear. Don't buy the lie that you're telepathic or such an empath that you can read your manager's mind about which decisions are yours and which are not. The authentic self. Trying to be yourself is a road to nowhere. Which bit, at what age, in which context? Work on your critical thinking skills instead. It's a much better use of your time. End of Chapter 4. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.